What is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden J here. I hope everyone is doing extremely well. It's been a little bit since we've done our last stream, but we are back and better than ever. Obviously, New York Mets baseball and spring training is only days away, so that is super exciting. And like I said, we are back and better than ever here to talk New York Mets baseball in today's stream. But like I said, what is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. I hope everyone is doing extremely well today. I am most certainly doing well today. Obviously, we got a great stream lined up for today. Obviously, still off season for another week, and then obviously we will be going into spring training. But yeah, obviously we'll have a little Q&A style stream today. Obviously drop all your great comments, questions, and concerns. And yeah, before we get into that, everyone, please smash that like button, turn on those post notifications, tell your friends about this channel. Like I said, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything related to the Mets, the Phillies, the Braves, Padres, anything baseball oriented, please feel free to drop it on in the comment section below. And like I said, I will, of course, go over all of your guys' phenomenal comments, questions, anything in the chat you got below. Don't hesitate to drop it. I will read every single one of your guys' questions and comments. So yeah, as I stated, we are back for a live stream. I know I don't usually like to stream a lot in the off season. Lately, I've just been kind of pumping out a lot of videos, and I do that on purpose. I'm not really big on streaming in the off season. Let's give me 1 second. Let me just put this up on Twitter. I know the internet's a little slow at my school, so just stand by for about 10 to 20 seconds. But yeah, let's get into some of the comments. Baseball media, what's going on, man? Haley, how are you? Haley says, hello, Hayden. One more week until spring training. That is correct. Only one more week until New York Mets baseball, and all of baseball spring training will be back into the picture. So that's going to be super exciting. Unbelievably pumped for spring training this year. It's really going to be an exciting year, no doubt about it. And it's mind-boggling to think that this is the first spring training that has been normal since the 2018 going into 2019 offseason. Obviously, 2020 you had the pandemic, and then obviously last year you had the lockout. So you just didn't really ever have a chance on getting any normal offseason. So it's good. It's good for the players. It's good for the fans, and of course people like me who like to talk baseball and eat, sleep, and breathe baseball. To be able to do all of that great stuff. So yeah. Scott, how's it going? Appreciate you tuning in. Jed, Connor, it's been a while. Good to see you, man. Marco, what's going on? Paul, Gio, Alex, what's going on? Trey, Michael says, hey, Hayden, what's new in Metsland? Not much. Everything has been for the most part typical off-season content. Everything's been going as planned. So yeah, hopefully everything can keep going up to par. And like I said, New York Mets baseball is starting. Cal says, hey, Hayden, how are you doing? Let's go Mets. Doing pretty well. Appreciate you tuning in. Connor, with one of our first big questions on the day, Connor is going to say, which Mets have the most to prove in camp this year? And that's a good question. And I mean, obviously, you could see a lot of Met players who will have a lot to prove coming into the season, whether it's a prospect, whether it's a bullpen arm, or whether it's a player who really struggled last year. And I think you could think of many candidates. Obviously, a couple guys that stand out in terms of the prospect. Obviously, guys like Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos. Most likely two of the three of them are going to start the season down in AAA, and probably one of them will make the opening day roster. I could see potentially Vientos kind of making that, just considering, he won't be playing a position. He'll just be obviously, an offensive piece. So it's, less for him to focus on, and just an easier guy to work with. Alvarez, a catcher you got to work with. Beatty, obviously, could be a third baseman DH. That's a story for another day. I do have a video coming out about that, so definitely keep tuned for that. But yeah, obviously, I think Alvarez and Beatty are definitely going to be two candidates in terms of the prospects. Obviously, guys like Darren Ruff are going to have a lot to prove. If we're going into spring training and, we have a couple days till the season, till spring training's over, and, you have guys like Darren Ruff, who are just absolutely looking sluggish and just looking horrible. then yeah, they are probably going to be having some concern going into the season. So those are just a couple guys that I could think of. Obviously guys like Joey Lucchese is going to have a lot to prove, considering Joey Lucchese is obviously returning from Tommy John surgery. He hasn't pitched in over just about a year and a half, a year and a quarter or two. So yeah, Lucchese is going to have a lot to prove. And, let's say you're a starter, guys like Carrasco, Peterson, McGill, they're going to be competing for that fifth spot. I mean, I like to say right now it's probably going to be Carrasco as that number 5 starter. But listen, going to spring training and, McGill is looking electric, and same goes for Peterson. And, maybe Carrasco's not looking too sharp. He's struggling with, whatever, his command, his off-speed pitches, whatever. Then maybe there could be a case. Maybe they could fight for that number 5 spot. Usually you see a lot of teams have that, even if it's a guy that's could be a certified number 5 starter. You could see that to kind of fire up some of the depth guys. But Peterson and McGill and Lucchese definitely have a big role. Obviously the prospects. So it's going to be interesting. Cal, what's going on? Cal says, will Edwin Diaz still be as dominant in 2023? And yeah, that's a question that, I've questioned a lot this offseason. A lot of people have asked me, do you think Diaz is going to be this dominant guy again in 2023? We all know how relievers are, very streaky. They're guys that you have to focus on and judge annually. There's only so many, relief arms and bullpens and closer arms out there who are consistent, for 2-3 plus years, or, create a streak. You only have so many Josh Haders and, Mariano Rivera's of the world. And, considering Diaz, really, with this time with the Mets, really only 2019. 2020 was a small sample size, but looked good. 2021 was phenomenal. And then 2022 was just electric. Reliever of the year, all-star caliber player, and he was just on another planet. And then, many Mets fans, and including myself, are hoping that he could take that into 2023, because he was a big part to the Mets bullpen success last year. We saw the Mets bullpen last year was not too great. There were only so many arms that you could put out there and that you could have faith in. And it'd come to the point where, Buck Showalter would go with the approach of putting Edwin Diaz for these, 4 or 5 out saves, something that not many managers do around the league. So it goes to show that everyone had confidence in Diaz last year. So, I think for Diaz to be this consistent guy and still be dominant, like I said, listen, is he gonna, be striking out, the side every 30 games he goes in? I don't know about that. But I don't think he'll be anywhere near 2019 ever again. Knock on wood, of course. But yeah, overall, I could see Edwin Diaz as this guy who can give you at least 80% to 85% of what he gave this year. That's me being, I guess, cautious. But being most realistic, I think we can definitely see another dominant performance from Edwin Diaz. Rob, what's going on? Good to see you. Absolutely, man. Super excited to see you coming Thursday. Obviously, talking Mets with Rob and I will be going to the 7-line spring training event. I will get into that a little bit more later in the stream, probably towards the end. I will be talking about that. So definitely keep an eye out on that. Kobe, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. Eric says, hey, Hayden, super happy that spring training is here. I will be in sunny Florida next week, so maybe I'll see you there. Let's go Mets. Yeah, absolutely. I will. Obviously, I live down here, so you will most likely see me if you are at Port St. Lucie next weekend. I will be there. So definitely, like I said, I'm going to explain a little bit more of that, towards the end of the stream. Kobe says, are you happy with the Mets current lineup? Yeah, right now, this Mets lineup is, listen, I could sit here and say this is the Mets lineup that exactly gave you 101 wins last year. I could sit here and say that. But there are factors that you like, that you're happy with, and then there's factors that you are not happy with, and you are going to question. The good, the bad, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I guess essentially what I like from this lineup that we could take right now is I like the consistency with a lot of these guys. I like the table setters in this lineup. The Mets have a lot of depth in this lineup, and I understand we're coming to the point where, the 7, 8, 9 hitters can't hit. How many times did we hear that last year? We heard that a lot. But right now, I think if you look at the top 6 guys in this order, in Nimmo, in Marte, in Lindor, in Alonso, in McNeil, in Canna. Consistent. Those are guys, top 3, great table setters. So, the offense is, like I said, consistent. They could come into clutch. We saw it plenty of times last year. It wasn't over until it was officially over. And like I said, I am happy with the current state of this lineup. However, there are some flaws with it, as there is for any lineup. I think, when you're taking a look at some of the flaws, I think, for example, the power, the lack of power production. You have guys like Pete Alonso who are going to hit you, 45 to, 50 home runs. And, that's great. You have guys like Francisco Lindor who, probably can give you 20, 25. That's really it. Nimmo, his approach is just to be, contact oriented, high OBP, low power, low slugging. McNeil, he's going to give you what, 10, not even, maybe 15. He's not at that 2019 where he's changing up his approach every quarter of the season. Bat to ball contact, that's a style. Canna doesn't really have the power, in my opinion, to do it. Marte, maybe he'll give you 15, 20. But the biggest question is going to be Eduardo Escobar. If Eduardo Escobar could really turn around and do what he did in September of 2022 for 75% of the season, I think the power production may not be a worry. Keep in mind, Escobar's a guy who hit, 30 home runs just in 2018 and 2019. And I think 2021, I think he had something around those lines. So you have Alonso, you have Lindor, you have Escobar consistent. 3 decent power hitters. I mean, I don't want to label Lindor as a power hitter because, he's a 5'2" athlete. He could do much more. You have Alvarez, sure. But, I mean, just imagine 2 years from now, you have Alonso, you have Alvarez. Maybe you'll have another power hitter, Vientos. Maybe another guy coming up at the realms, free agency, whatever. It's pretty darn good. So, when it comes to the part of the lineup, I think there's 3 concerns that I worry about. The lack of power, the catcher position. The catcher position is very exasperating because, right now you're dealing with Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido. And both of those guys are great defensively. They're pretty solid. They're, backup defensive glove catchers, but they're not going to contribute much offensively. And, that's fine to an extent. But then when it comes to the point of having other positions where you're not contributing, well, then you're just having, a full innings worth of guys who are just going to be this low average, low OPS, low OBP guy. And unfortunately, you cannot have that on this ball club. When Alvarez gets here, great. But right now we're dealing with Narvaez. We're dealing with Nido. You got McCann out of the picture. Like I said, I'm not asking our catchers to be hitting like Real Muto and, what Grandal used to be and, Will Smith. But I'm asking if our catchers can give us a sub 230 average. Maybe a little bit of pop in there at bat. Take some walks. Get on base somehow. Fundamental baseball. Advance the runners. They're probably going to be batting 9th, so go for it. The DH position I do worry about as well. Right now, the DH role is something that the Mets are going to have to explore. Obviously, they're going with an internal option. They didn't really, I guess, Tommy Pham. Sure, you can make that as an external option for the offseason, but not really a guy who's going to be, his numbers aren't going to be popping off and making people's eyes glow and oohing and eyeing. So right now, I mean, your DHs are going to consist of likely Tommy Pham, Daniel Vogelbach. The Mets are taking a gamble still with Darren Ruff. Those are your big 3, unless they, for whatever reason, put Vientos there or some scenario, Beatty. I can't imagine a world where they would want Alvarez as the DH and not put him in AAA and catch, or in the MLB level and let him catch. Maybe some off days, sure, give him a DH role. That's what's great about it. But I think when it comes to it right now is, when it comes to it right now is, it's a platoon position. You're going to have probably Vogelbach. And I hate to say it, but you're probably going to have the same DH platoon as last year in Vogelbach and Ruff. And when it comes to Vogelbach last year, all of the guys, Vogelbach, Naquin, and Ruff, did phenomenal for 2 weeks. For the first week, 2 weeks, they did phenomenal, and then they kind of just wet the bed coming for the rest of August and September, and that's what really let the teams down. when the whole offense was struggling as a whole, which really sucked. But when it comes to it right now with Vogelbach, he's a power guy. He's a big dude. He did drop some weight. If you look at some of his Instagram pictures and Twitter and other social medias and some pictures of him at spring training. I don't know if he's reported yet. I believe he has. He slimmed down. He looked like he probably lost a good 20 pounds at least, I'd say. So he definitely got a little bit more slim. So like I said, maybe that could help a little bit with his bat. I know he's a power guy. Still going to hit, for power. Still going to hit some, launch angle above, or exit velocity, over 100 miles per hour in terms of singles and doubles. Sure. Last year, I think the issue with Vogelbach was he was very disciplined at the plate. He didn't swing the bat a lot. It resulted in a lot of walks and a lot of base hits. That's great. But when you're dealing with a guy of Vogelbach with his speed, you're going to want some power from him. He's not a table setter like Nimmo or McNeil or Marte. He's a power hitter. I'm not relying on Alonso and Vogelbach to, walk and get base hits. I want some extra base hits, some homers out of them. Don't get me wrong. If they do that, it's baseball, pass the baton. I'm all for it. But it comes to the point where, Vogelbach's going to be hitting, if he's going to give me 10 home runs and everything else is going to be strikeouts, singles, and walks, well, that's a little frustrating for, that. So, yeah, the DH spot's a concern. The catcher spot's a concern. When it comes to Escobar at third, if he could really bounce back, I think with Eduardo Escobar right now, he's a guy that a lot of Mets fans are going to keep an eye out on. And I'm actually going to be uploading a video pretty soon, talking about the third base position and essentially, who are the options. And I think right now with Eduardo Escobar, it's simple to say, Escobar is going to be on a short leash to an extent. I get it. He had a hot September. And if he can give us at least 75 or at least half of what he did in September of last year for all of 2023, I'm about it. I'm all for it. Like I said, Escobar is going to really have to contribute. If we're coming into, June or Memorial Day just about, and Escobar is, batting this, Mendoza line 200 and has like 10 home runs. Yeah, that's going to be an issue. And, we're going to be hearing talks of Brady and, for goodness sakes, Viento's playing third base. And that's just may what it come to be. So, like I said, this lineup, if I'm grading it, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. Obviously, I deduct 2 points just because of the catcher position that I really do worry about the catcher and the DH. Third base, I'm more confident in. Everything else, I have no issue. I think you got great table setters. The power is a little bit of a concern, but, at the end of the day, if you could drive in runs, keep driving them in. I get it. If guys like Alonso was hitting many, Alonso didn't have a lot of solo shots last year. A lot of his home runs were 2-run, 3 runs. He had 2 grand slams, first time in his career. So, that's really good to see. So hopefully that could keep being the case for the Mets and they can get their lineup to be dominant. BJ, what's going on? He says, where you're from and how you become a Mets fan. So originally I'm from New York. I was born and raised in Long Island. And then after I graduated high school about 2 years ago, I moved to Florida with my family, and I live in South Florida, just near West Palm Beach, Miami area. And now I'm in college. I go to Stetson, which is the same school that DeGrom went to. Kluber, Zika, Gilbert, a couple other guys, which is New Orlando. So yeah, essentially originally from New York, but I am living in South Florida now, just kind of like everyone else is doing. It seems there's a pattern there. And how did I become a Mets fan? I really couldn't tell you, to be honest. I remember I really got into baseball. I was born 2002. I think it was the 06 Mets is when I really started to kind of watch it. Obviously, 06 Mets, I was 4 or 5 years old, so I wasn't this crazy knowledgeable fan. I couldn't really tell you jack shit, but thought it was cool to see guys like David Wright hit home runs and Carlos Beltran and Carlos Delgado, doing their stuff in the outfield, in the infield, of course, too. But yeah, in terms of how I became a fan, I just think Long Island, usually associated with the Mets, and yeah, I think that's really more so how I became a fan. Alex says, who is the backup third baseman, Guillorme or Beatty? When it comes to the backup third baseman, I'd probably say Luis Guillorme. I mean, Guillorme is going to be in a great role this year. I mean, really, he broke out like crazy last year as a utility guy, and obviously, a lot of people were hoping to see him do that in 2021, and then you had Jonathan VR, and then 2022 was really where he was able to just let loose and do what he wanted to do. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Guillorme. I love Beatty, but being honest, I don't know if he's necessarily gonna start the season in the MLB level. I really wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Brett Beatty start the season in AAA. But maybe if we're dealing in the second half, it wouldn't hurt to see Beatty, as a backup third baseman. Guillorme, focus on utility. Later in the game, adjustment defensively or something. If guy goes down, an off day, double header, whatever the scenario is, I think that could certainly be the case. But as of right now, I think it probably it's going to go Escobar, Guillorme, Beatty in terms of the 1, 2, 3. So yeah. Michael, what's going on, man? Appreciate you. Just wearing the hats, man. I don't know if you're new to the channel, but every single stream and every single video, I have like 10 different hats. IB Dose, what's going on? Appreciate you tuning in. Polar Bear Pete, yes, sir. Michael says, hopefully bringing the fence in will allow them to generate more power. And with the shift gone, I expect Lindor's numbers to go way up because of that. And you know what? That's a good point. I completely forgot that they are bringing in the right field and then like the center right, the right center field wall. They are bringing that in, I think, like 10 feet or so, just about. So that actually is going to be a really good contributor to the Mets' power because, considering you have some lefties like Nimmo, like McNeil, who are not big power guys, maybe that could inflate their home run numbers and their power numbers, maybe, 1 or 2 extra long balls a year. But hey, if it helps, it helps. Obviously, banning of the shift is going to be huge. I think it's going to help a lot of the lefties on this team, like Nimmo. I would say McNeil, but he beats the shift as it is. But maybe you could, give him an extra couple hits because why not? So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting seeing how the Mets really adjust to those two things, and really all of MLB. So yeah, we're really going to have to see how things go. But it's going to be exciting. Lindor is definitely going to benefit. A lot of the switch hitters in Escobar, in Lindor, are really just going to benefit. Right? I think everyone in this lineup is going to benefit from at least the shift or. Of course, bringing in the fences, and then so when it comes to stealing bases, guys like Starling Marte and Brandon Nimmo, and some other guys like Lindor, that could maybe motivate them to steal more. 1, because you have bigger bases, and 2, because there's a limitation on how many times they could throw back. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Mets rotation is better this year than last year, in my opinion. The veteran presence is going to play a huge role. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you when it comes to the Mets rotation being better this year than last year. I think when it came down to it is, people are making the argument, is Verlander better than DeGrom? And, well, I mean, would you rather have someone go out there every 5 days or go out there, 5 times in the whole season? So, yeah. I think when it comes down to it, I agree with you. I think having that back-to-back veteran presence is going to be good. And I really like in the Mets' way of going about things is that you have the top 2 aces as veterans, and then the 3, 4, 5 guys as these mid-range, these mid-age players, and followed up by your depth guys and Peterson and McGill, who are younger, pre-arbitration guys. I think that's what a lot of good ball teams should do. I've really been fascinated with the Mets' approach of trying to do this Brewers, Woodruff and Burns approach of putting McGill and Peterson in a bullpen or a shorter role and then kind of releasing them out, maybe once a guy like Verlander and Scherzer, retire, their contract expires. Because, we're going to have both of them for the next 2-3 years. So, maybe that, that can give guys like McGill and Peterson enough time to, really fix who they are. Peterson with his command, his accuracy when it comes to the plate, his slider. McGill, obviously, very guy who's going to have a lot of success that a lot of people are hoping for. So, yeah, we'll see how things go with that. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Are you going to spring training this year? Yes. I'm going to talk about that a little bit towards the end of the stream, but yes, I will. Verlander is more reliable than Jake. Senga has more upside than Bass. Quintana has better advanced stats than Walker. And we know Cookie is going to be a hit or miss. Yeah, I mean, pretty much like you said, Verlander is more reliable than Jake health-wise. I agree with you. I think when it comes to Kodai Senga, he's going to be a really interesting character coming into the season. Listen, I don't know if necessarily he's going to be this guy who's going to come in and give me a sub-2 ERA and win Rookie of the Year and be in top 5 of the NL Cy Young voting. I don't know about that. Listen, I wouldn't be shocked if Kodai Senga comes in and struggles for a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a little bit of a shaky season. And obviously, New York Mets fans are going to flip their shit because he's going to have to be perfect his first season, of course, being facetious, by the way. But yeah, I definitely think Senga is going to have a pretty dominant season to an extent. I think he'll have a pretty pretty adequate season for most Mets fans. I think he definitely is going to have an interesting time adjusting to the MLB compared to the Nippon, the NPB league in Japan. Because, you've seen a lot of guys, they've had their fair share of complexities, and you've been seeing guys like Hassan Kim, even Shohei Ohtani originally, when he started with the Angels, it took a little bit of time. And look at him now. He's one of the best players in the game. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see Senga. But I agree with you. I think he does have more upside than Bassett. I think he has, I would just say more of just more versatile, I would probably say. And Quintana obviously has much better stats than Walker. We obviously all know about Taijuan Walker and his second half slumps and, how inconsistent he is. And, yeah, Carrasco's going to be a hit or miss. Carrasco's a guy who's going to give you 3 starts and then 2 shitty ones and then 2 more great ones and then a bad one. So that is why I'm debating that 5th start is really up for grabs. Max is Max, but hopefully he stays healthy this season. Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, the health of Scherzer and Verlander is going to be huge. Obviously you have great depth pieces. I mean, you pretty much have a second rotation in McGill, Peterson, Hernandez, and Lucchesi. So, not many other teams are blessed with that. Think about it. 5 years ago, you were throwing in Corey Oswalt's and of the world, and how was that? Jack says Mets rotation is fire. Absolutely. Man, how heartbreaking. Yeah, 2006, 2015, those were very, very rough years for the New York Mets. Luckily, I was young in 06, so I didn't really call for much. I remember 2015, I was I in like 7th or 8th? Yeah, I was in 7th grade, and I remember I didn't go to school for like the next 2 days because I was like heartbroken. It's horrible. Guillorme. For the backup third baseman. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I concur. Trey says, are David Peterson and Tyler McGill MLB's best depth starters? McGill's body language on the mound spells stud. Let's not forget, prior to the injury in 2022, he was the man. Absolutely. I mean, what a lot of people forget about Tyler McGill was he was the opening day starter for this Mets team last year. When DeGrom went down, McGill got called up. And I was reading an article from the New York Post a couple of weeks ago, and it was a statistic in there, or just a basic stat that pretty much said that when DeGrom was out, Trevor Williams, David Peterson, and Tyler McGill made 31 starts for him. And they won 17 of those games. And that's why I say it's important that you need guys like consistent actual guys that are good. You can't be throwing out these barely AAA ball players like your Corey Oswalt's and Jared Eichhoff's of the world, because those 17 games there, that would have probably put you borderline wild card territory right there. So I agree with you. I do think they're MLB's best depth starters. I mean, how many other teams do you see that have a 6, 7, 8 starter in it? There's teams out there like the Yankees, like the Brewers, who have great rotations, but Aaron Ashby's and like Eric Lauers. Okay, fair. Yankees, now that Montas is hurt, it'd probably be like, yeah, so they're probably, so yeah, I would say so. Michael says Guillorme is a super utility guy, along the lines of Super Joe. Beatty should be backup. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what it's going to be, regardless of just seniority. I think it's just more so the utility spot that's going to help out Guillorme. And like I said, I mean, it's great to see a guy like Luis Guillorme. And like I said, not many other teams can have a guy like Luis Guillorme's caliber who can go out there, play a little bit of third, play a little bit of short, play a little bit of second. I don't necessarily think Guillorme is an everyday player yet. I just think the consistency is going to be something that catches up to him, and it did last year. He started a lot of games. He played 88 games, which is just about half a season, a little bit more. And, he kind of, he looked great in 40 of them. And then the other 40, he kind of, was a little fatigued and just kind of worn out and inconsistent. He's not this power guy. He's just kind of like McNeil Nimmo, high average, slaps the ball, gets on base, and, is a fan favorite just because he's a funny guy. That's great and all. So we'll have to see how things go. How good could Kodai Senga be for the Mets in 2023? Asked Connor. Yeah, I mean, I kind of stated it before, and really just continuing to say is, I easily think Senga will have a pretty adequate season. I don't necessarily think, like I said, he's going to be, rookie of the year, sub 2 ERA, under 2 ERA, top 5 in Cy Young. I don't really think that's necessarily going to be the case for him. But when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he acclimates to the MLB. Interesting to see his arsenal of pitches. He has a lot of nasty pitches that are very unorthodox that you don't see a lot in the United States in American baseball in the MLB. Like the ghost ball or the fork ball, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I was looking how it's gripped. And I mean, I was just sitting, in my room one day and I was just trying to grip it with the baseball. And I'm just like, this feels really uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see how that acclimates to the MLB. Like I said, I mean, in terms of his mechanics, in terms of his velocity, pounding the strike zone, his ability to that, it's not really a concern. Off-speed stuff will be interesting to observe, but I think the fork ball or ghost pitch, whatever you want to call it, I think that's going to be really interesting to see how Senga kind of goes about that. So, yeah, definitely keep an eye out on that. BJ says, you look like you're in middle school. I thought you were 15 or 13. Thank you, I guess. Kodai Senga for rookie of the year. It's a possibility. I mean, you're going to have a lot of good rookie candidates out there. Corbin Carroll from the Diamondbacks. In terms of the NL, it's not as stacked. I feel like the AL has more candidates, but in terms of the NL, I mean, Corbin Carroll, Francisco Alvarez are kind of like the big two that have kind of been circulating. But yeah, Senga, it's crazy to think Senga would be a rookie in MLB. He's what, like 50, 30. Yeah, he's 30 years old. So you don't see that every day. Mets fan, what's going on? Mets fan MB. He says, hey, Hayden, do you think Luke Voit should sign to a minor league deal? Also, do you think we should get Britton? Yeah, I've completely forgot that Luke Voit is still a free agent, and it's kind of crazy that no one has gotten after him. Yeah, I mean, I think Luke Voit could be a great addition in terms of his power bat. Obviously, good backup first baseman. So, obviously, I mean, right now, I mean, who's the backup first baseman for Alonso? I mean, Vogelbach is really not. I don't really think in the spirits to play first base. I think he's just a DH. I don't really see Vogelbach playing any position. And defensively, he's pretty trashy at first, so you don't want that. And like I said, it's not like you have a backup first baseman in Dom or JD anymore. So it's really just Alonso at first. Obviously, Vientos, I've been seeing, has been taking some reps at first. So, Vientos could be your backup first baseman if Alonso needs a day off or a doubleheader or ninth inning adjustment for whatever reason. But yeah, I would probably say something around the lines of Luke Voit could benefit from that. Like I said, backup first base role. He's a power guy. But yeah, I completely forgot that he was on the market still. Oh yeah, Ruff. I forgot Darren Ruff would be the backup first baseman. And defensively, no one really cares about their defense. Vogelbach or Ruff or Voit, because they don't really contribute much defensively. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously Voit could probably offer much more power, like you said. I agree with you. He could definitely offer much more power than Darren Ruff. And to think a couple years ago that he led the league in 2020, small sample size, but he led the league in 2020 in 22 homers. just in 60 games. So, yeah, pretty crazy to think about. Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't hurt, even if it's not a minor league deal. 1 year cheap AAV deal. Like I said, I mean, you look at his numbers from last year with San Diego and Washington. They're nothing, too crazy or, nothing too crazy. Low average, low OBP, decent slugging, low OPS. He'll give you, maybe 2 dozen just about in terms of home runs, but he's really not going to contribute to much when it besides power, I guess. And that would be the really only, I guess, big incentive that you would want to sign Luke Voigt is for the power. But obviously, if Vogelbach and Escobar could contribute to that, I wouldn't be against that. But yeah, and one thing, so in the 94th percentile in barrel percentage, so that's it's pretty rare. You don't really see that a lot. So that just goes to show you that when he hits a ball, it's traveling hard and far. Who's going to be the number 5 starter? Yeah, I actually have a video of that in the works, Michael. Right now, I mean, you have multiple candidates. Obviously, David Peterson, he's a lefty. But like I said, you have Quintana as a lefty, so I guess kind of really who cares? Sorry about that sunlight. Like I said, Tyler McGill. So David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Alicia Hernandez, Joey Lucchese. So those are really really have 4 guys that are going to be contending for that number 5 spot. It's probably going to be Carrasco still. I don't really think, don't get me wrong. Peterson and McGill are going to get the starts. There's going to be injuries. It's going to happen. I'm not jinxing it. It happens with all teams. Even if there's a doubleheader or something, it's just going to happen. But as of right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to Carrasco. If they want to go the younger route, Peterson, and then you have the double lefty, I think that is pretty decent. Like I said, there are plenty of ball clubs out there that struggle to hit left-handed pitching, and I value stacking of teams with lefty pitchers because, like I said, there's more righties on the planet and in baseball than lefties. So obviously you want to have the opposing guys face each other. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Kobe Baxter, what's going on? Kobe says, which surprise prospects could we find roles on 2023 Mets? It would be awesome if Ronnie Mauricio developed into a guy like, for instance, Yordan Alvarez. Yeah, but, Ronnie Mauricio is one guy that a lot of people are sleeping on. When everyone talks about the farm system and prospects, everyone's talking about Alvarez and Beatty and Vientos. And don't get me wrong, those are definitely guys that deserve the attention, deserve the hype. But one guy that is not really getting much attention and really deserves a lot more is Ronnie Mauricio. I get the part when it comes to Mauricio. Obviously, I don't think, obviously, he's not going to be a shortstop, considering Francisco Lindor is going to be the shortstop for the next 10 years, for the next decade. When it comes to him playing third base, he gained some weight, so I don't really think he, when the Mets drafted him, he was, I think it was about 180, 190 pounds. It's about 230 pounds now, 6'4". So I think second base is kind of out of the picture because I don't really know many 6'4", 235-pound second basemen. And I think kind of the same could probably go for third base. But, like I said, Mauricio, he has power and he has nice speed. He's young. I wouldn't be against putting him in the outfield. We saw that it was in, I want to say the Dominican League or the Winter League or whatever it was this past offseason when he started off playing short and then O'Neal Cruz came in and then he got moved to the outfield. That wouldn't be a horrible thing if the Mets were to look into that. Because, like I said, I think Mauricio, I would hate to label him as, a trade candidate or trade bait. But if you're not going to put him in another position, kind of what are we waiting for? He's young. Put him in, work with him in another position now. So yeah, we're honestly going to have to just see how things go with that. It's going to be interesting. Probably an outfield. I don't think he's going to be any infield role. Like, I don't think, body-wise, he doesn't fit for second. He doesn't fit for third. He could for third, just not really second. So, bit of hit or miss. Connor says, would love to see an increase in home runs with runners in scoring position, just not solo shots, but we'll take what we can get, obviously. Yeah, I mean, you saw that a lot last year. I don't really think you saw it that much with the Mets last year. I mean, keep in mind, last year's team, you had a lot of table setters. You had a Nimmo, in Marte, in Lindor. And, a lot of the run creation was, by guys like Alonso and Lindor, the 3, 4, 5 guys, more so the 3, 4 guys in the order. I kind of feel on the contrary. I feel that they got a lot of guys with runners in scoring position. They didn't hit a lot of home runs. Yes, a lot of their runs were on singles and doubles and extra base hits. A lot of their runs was not on home runs. But when guys like Alonso and Lindor were connecting and hitting one out of the park, 2-run, 3-run homer, there were guys on base. So I don't know. I kind of feel different. I have to look into the numbers and the stats of the home when it came to home runs with runners in scoring position and guys on base. But yeah, I felt it was the opposite. I felt in 2021 it was that way. I mean, if you look at teams like the Philadelphia Phillies, I mean, what killed them in the World Series was the lack of table setters, and they would just hit these solo shots. You see Schwarber, Harper, Bohm just hitting all these solo shots with no one on base, and it was just useless. And then you'd have the Astros and Alvarez, hitting these, 3-run go-ahead home runs, and Bregman hitting these 2-run bombs, and Altuve hitting these walk-offs, these grand slams and stuff. So, yeah. And, the Phillies, they cured that issue by bringing in Trey Turner, one of the best shortstop in baseball and one of the best leadoff guys in baseball, if he'll be leadoff or second. But yeah, we'll see with that, with the Phillies at least. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel on the contrary. I honestly thought when they did connect, when the ball did leave the park, there were guys on base. Maybe you were more alluding to, Connor, that they didn't hit a lot of home runs. Yes. But that probably would be the case. All right, sorry. Luke Voigt would be much better than Ruff. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you that. I definitely would agree with you on that. This is a good one. Do you think the 2006 or 2015 Mets team was better? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to use, how it ended in terms of determining it. I'm just going to look at it from the season itself and the postseason. So let's break it down. So at first base for the 2015 Mets, you had Duda. First base, you had Delgado. Probably go with Carlos Delgado. So that's 1 point for 2006. Second baseman, 2015 was Daniel Murphy. Who was the second baseman for 2006? It was 2006 Mets second baseman. Jose Valentin, right? I forgot about that. I'm just gonna go Daniel Murphy just because of that incredible postseason. Shortstop was obviously Reyes and Flores. Probably Reyes. I mean, considering Flores wasn't even the full-time shortstop that year, as Ruben Tejada, he got a little screwed. Obviously, third base was the same, David Wright, so it's a draw. Left field, Cliff Floyd or Michael Conforto. Probably Floyd, considering. Well, I'd honestly say Conforto, just because he really helped contribute, and I really apologize with that shit. He really helped contribute to a lot of the Mets' production in the second half. You saw this 2015 Mets team, when it came to just entering the second half, they were down just offensively. No one was hitting. It wasn't until they brought in Cespedes, when they brought in Juan Uribe, when they brought in Michael Kadire, when they called up Michael Conforto, one of the highly viewed prospects, is really when they started to get their stuff together. So I'd say Conforto. Center field, you had Cespedes, Beltran. I think that's the toughest one to answer. Shit. That's tough. I mean, Beltran that year had like 40 plus home runs. But then Cespedes, I mean, literally, sparked the Mets second half. Honestly, I'm going to have to say Ty. Right field, you had Sean Green and Curtis Granderson. Probably Curtis Granderson. Catcher was Darno and LaDuca. Probably Darno. So being honest, I'd probably say the 06 team. I just think they had more, I guess, consistency. I would probably say more consistency when it came down to it. 2015, the fact that you would get to a World Series, I mean, this team didn't hit in 2015. They weren't a great offensive team. They were a great team that had pitching. They relied on their pitching, but they were not a team that, they were, I don't want to say like the Brewers, but they weren't a team that had these great offensive bats. Sure, they had Wright. Yeah, they had Murphy. Yeah, they had Duda. Yeah, they have Trent, they obtained Cespedes and, a couple other guys in the gang at the deadline. But they relied on their pitching. It was a rotation of DeGrom, Syndergaard getting called up. Matt's getting called up. Zach Wheeler, Bartolo Colon. Really those guys that carry. I mean, one of the best, rotations in baseball that the Mets have had assembled. And even if you look at it now with Zach Wheeler's success and, guys down the line. So, yeah. Being honest, I'd probably say 2006. 06, Kobe says 15. Yeah, everyone's kind of saying 06. Michael says Peterson is the better starter. I don't like him in the bullpen because of his control. I agree with you on that, Michael. I think that is one flaw with putting Peterson in the bullpen is, like I said, you put him in the bullpen, his command of the strike zone, the walks, is an issue. He was a guy who had a lot of issues with walks and base hits. Played a couple times in the bullpen last year, and he had a hard time acclimating. Like I said, he has a hard time finding the strike zone, walks, and base hits. And, like I said, considering he's a bullpen arm, there's much less room for error. And he doesn't have the time and availability to get out of certain jams. Peterson could easily be a guy to, strike out and then maybe, give up 2 hits, runners on the corners, and boom, double player out of the inning. But, in a reliever situation, it's less room for error, and then your manager is just going to make a call to the bullpen and put in another arm. Where if you're a starter, they may have more trust. So I think when it comes to it, I agree with you. I don't really like Peterson in the bullpen necessarily so much because, like you said, the control, the command of the strike zone, and the walks. But, that's something he could easily fix on. Peterson's a guy who's been changing his approach left and right. 2020, he was a guy who just pounded the zone, strikeout. 2021, didn't throw many strikeouts, didn't record many strikeouts, a lot of ground balls, a lot of fly balls outs. Last year, he mixed it up. You'd see some starts where he'd get 10 strikeouts and then another start where he'd get 1 strikeout and, 10 ground balls to the infield. So he really changes up his approach. Obviously, it depends on what he's throwing, the slider, the fastball. If he can get command on that slider a little bit better, then yes, I would have no issue with that. But yeah, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe Peterson can come into this year, be in a relief situation, and he could find the strike zone. But if Peterson is going to, then that's going to be an issue is, what are you going to do with him? And, from what we heard last year, Peterson and McGill weren't really fond of being in the bullpen. But when it came to McGill, how much of a choice did he have? He, was really only playing for, for a month. He only really played in April and a little bit of May, and then he was out, and then he came back and just was horrible in the bullpen. But, that could just also be from, not pitching for a while and just kind of getting back into, his groove in some sort. So, yeah, we're going to have to see with how they go about that because, Peterson and McGill are, one of the two of them or at least both of them are going to be starting in the bullpen for more than half of the year. I get it. Guys are going to get hurt. There's going to be off days, sure. But it's simply enough going to happen. 2015, yeah, I agree with you on that. How old am I? I turned 21 last month. Michael Moore says 06 team had the best record in baseball. Keep that in mind. Yeah, what was the record in 2006? Was it like 100? No, was it 100? Was it? 97. Okay, close enough. Crazy to think that 97 was the best record. Now it's like 110 or something. So it's crazy to see how much the game changes over time. Mets fan MB says also, when are you going to spring training? Do you know the dates? I might be there. So I'm leaving school on the 23rd. As soon as I'm done with class, I'm dipping out of Stetson. So sayonara. And then I'm gonna be in Port St. Lucie. So I'm going bar hopping on Friday evening. And then I'm gonna be in Port St. Lucie Friday, Saturday, but I'm gonna be bar hopping Friday. And then Saturday, I am going to be at the complex for the Mets and Mets and Marlins? Yeah, Mets and Marlins game at 6:10. So I will be there. So Saturday, yeah. Ronnie Mauricio is a beast, says Seth. Yeah, I agree with you, man. He is. Mets fan says Mets are better than Braves because there are too much of a strikeout team. Yeah, I mean, Braves are definitely a team that strike out home run. And obviously, losing Dansby Swanson was definitely a big blow. Where, that is one thing you can make about the Mets versus the Braves is, the Braves, I would say, got worse than last year. I think losing Swanson and replacing him with Vaughn Grisham is definitely a disappointment for the Braves. The Mets lost to Grom, and how did they counter that? They got Verlander. They got Senga. They got Quintana. If the Mets lost to Grom and got freaking, I don't freaking know, like Matt Moore, yeah, I'd be upset. Where the Braves, they lost Swanson, and then they say, okay, well, Vaughn Grisham, it's your time to shine. Don't get me wrong, Vaughn Grisham could maybe come out there and do great, but I just think he's young. I think defensively he doesn't have it yet. Offensively. So, the Braves have that hole. And I agree with you. They're a big, heavy, home runner strikeout team. And you have those in baseball like the Yankees. But, when the playoffs comes, what happens? Kobe says, how many games do you think the Mets can win? I still think 95 when it's the division, but the first round bye for the teams didn't do too well. And that was a big issue for them last year. Obviously, the byes did not do well. Obviously, the Dodgers got kicked first round bye. It was the Dodgers and I believe the Braves that had the bye. And both of those teams got destroyed by the wild card teams. The Padres beat the Dodgers and the Phillies beat the Braves. So, yeah, I definitely think just the rest and, obviously the wild card teams being a little bit more fresh when it comes to their bullpen and their offense. So, yeah, I definitely think, like I said, and nowadays when it comes to it, it doesn't really matter where you finish. Look at it last year, the Phillies. What was it? 2 games from winning the World Series. They were the last team to make the playoffs. They were the last seed to make the playoffs. If the Phillies, or if MLB had, the postseason format that they did for 2021 in the past years, Phillies would have not even made it. Crazy to think. So that really goes to show you, it doesn't really matter where you finish. It doesn't matter if you win the division. It doesn't matter if you are, second in the seeding or last in the seeding. It really only matters is, who gets hot and when they get hot and if it's at the right time. The Phillies, everyone thought they would get smeared by the Braves. Or everyone thought the Cardinals were going to beat them. But no, didn't happen. So, it goes to show you. Everyone projected the Mets to do great against the Padres, and how'd that work out? Mets fans, MB says Mets need a new DH and maybe a reliever for the trade deadline. Yeah, the DH thing, I mean, we did discuss that, but that'll be an interesting thing coming for this season. Like I said, right now they're going to ride with the internal options in Vogelbach, in Ruff. Obviously, you're going to have guys like Vientos, and, maybe you wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Beatty can make a start at the DH role. You have Tommy Pham, definitely he could be valuable against lefties. Put Pham in the DH role against a lefty. So, yeah, we're going to have to see how things go when it comes to the DH spot. I am really hoping that they can try and, really figure out their situation when it comes to the DH role. Because right now it's going to get a little frustrating. It is. You can't have this gap in in the lineup. You can't. And relievers, yeah. I mean, relievers is something that, any team would honestly trade for at the deadline. But, yeah, say go for it. Doesn't hurt. I mean, you have enough left-handed pitching. I mean, I think this bullpen is much better than what it was last year. I mean, last year, I mean, you would just be concerned. You had a lefty shortage. I mean, the only lefty you had was Dolly Rodriguez, and he was dog shit. So, yeah. I mean, right now, I think this bullpen is in a much better spot than what it was last year. You know, you have more. I mean, you have a 7, 8, 9 of David Robertson, Adam Ottavino, Edwin Diaz. That's pretty darn good if you ask me. Cardinals Talk with Hayden. What's up? What's going on, man? I'm doing well. Appreciate you tuning in. Trey says, when will Francisco Alvarez become the Mets starting catcher? So yeah. You know, we've discussed this a lot over the channel for the past year or two, and I don't really think Alvarez will be on the roster opening day. I wouldn't be surprised if they put him down in AAA just because he's a catcher, and there's a lot more to work on with the catcher than any other position. Obviously, the defense is huge, and you know, dealing with James McCann's shitty defense, you know, I think Alvarez's defense is probably a little bit better than McCann's as of right now, but you know, there's always room for improvement, and with Alvarez getting all this hype, you want him to have the best defense available. So yeah, we're honestly gonna have to see how things go with that. But right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Alvarez gets the call up in like June or, you know, late spring, early summer, you know, like when school's getting out. You know, people, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens probably around then. Valentino 06, yes. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, considering David, yeah. I mean, the 06 David Wright was much better. I mean, I believe he won it was 07 and 08 when he won the Silver Slugger. He was an all-star that year, of course. But yeah, I mean, also David Wright, just, you know, health-wise, didn't really have it in 2015. You know, he missed a lot of time, so big factor. This time is sports suck. Nothing is really happening. NBA, all-star game, which is bad. NHL, I guess, got away from MLB. Yeah, right now it's really just spring training for the most part. Can you remind me? Oh, no. I think you're a Royals fan. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you're a Royals fan, right? Am I right, Brad? Unfortunately, yeah, the Royals did win. Haley says Lindor put up a 6.8 WAR season while dealing with bad appendix. I forgot about that. Yeah, with his finger when he slammed it against the stupid hotel door. I can only imagine the type of production he'll be, because that's a good point. He wasn't feeling 100% for a lot of the season, and he did state that, and you know, management and the Mets organization did state that he wasn't feeling 100% because of that. And yeah, I forgot about that dumb door incident. Yeah, honestly, I think, you know, Lindor definitely is in for a good season. You know, defensively, no concerns. I like where he is defensively. You know, offensively, I think, you know, the consistency is going to be big. You know, we saw Lindor start off. I mean, you know, the spring training. Don't judge Lindor in spring training because he was elite in spring training in 2021 and 2022. So don't judge a player for spring training. If they're doing good or bad, you can't. But Lindor did phenomenal in April, phenomenal in May. You know, got quiet in June and July, and you know, came back a little in August. Had a little bit of a power boost. Got quiet, you know, in September. And yeah, so I mean, Lindor is very inconsistent last year. I would say more consistent than not. But there are those times where you're gonna need him. You know, considering he's, you know, a number 3 hitter. In this lineup, you know, you need your 4 guys, you know, your 1, 2, 3, 4 guys at Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso to be consistent. But yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Lindor will put up another, you know, 6 to 7 to 8 WAR season. 5, 6, 7, I would say is pretty good. Mets are a 100-win team this year, in my opinion. Yeah, I would say so. The offseason flew. It did, man. I'll tell you. No lockout, no pandemic. It flew by. It really did. Connor says, I'm pumped for spring training. Watching all the prospects will be awesome. Yeah, that is probably the one most exciting thing I am looking forward to for the spring training is watching Francisco Alvarez, Vientos, Beatty. I would say that, you know, the 2 biggest things right now is probably going to be prospects and the rotation. Yeah, I'm sorry about this glare, guys. I'm trying to I'm sorry. I'll probably just put it like this. LFGM, what's going on, Ruben? Michael says McGill might have to be a pen guy with all of his arm troubles. Yeah, if the injury is going to be a concern, then yeah, you probably would put him in the bullpen. And like I said, you're just going to have to tell him, sucks to be you if you don't like it. If he's going to get hurt, you can't have him as a rotation starter if he's going to, be out for 2 months. Can't have that. How do you feel about the Mets? Feeling pretty good. The Mets have David Peterson and Blade Tidwell and Robertson and Tyler McGill. Yeah. Blade Tidwell is a prospect. He has some time. I want to say he's in Double-A right now, so I don't really think we're going to be hearing much of him for the next year or two. Really just Peterson, Robertson, and McGill. So, yeah. Hopefully the loss of Swanson will hurt the Braves, and hopefully the 3 rookies from last year will have a sophomore slump, Harris, Strider, and Grisham. And I was wondering that. You saw the Braves last year have a lot of success from their rookies. You see Vaughn Grisham get called up in his first game against Boston. He gets like a 3-run go-ahead home run. Spencer Strider really had a breakout season last year on the mound, and then Michael Harris, the second, I think, or junior, whatever he's called. So, yeah, I was wondering if they were. And if they do, then that's not a good position for them. Olsen was pretty decent last year. I mean, kind of what I expected. Big home run strikeout, mediocre average, solid OPS, mediocre on base percentage. Ozzy Albies, he's coming back from injury, so we'll see how he goes. Austin Riley, I think, is going to be a unit, so watch out for him. Acuna is going to be a unit. But, yeah, I wonder with the 3 rookies how that's going to go. I am wondering. What do the Mets do with Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez, Ronnie Mauricio, Alex Ramirez, Jeff Brigham, John Curtis, and Kale Sang? So in terms of starting the season, because I want to keep this short, Beatty, probably AAA until like May. Vientos, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the roster spot just because of his power and just because he's only a DH and could play an easy backup first base. Alvarez, AAA probably until May, June. Mauricio, probably AA, AAA. Ramirez, AA. Brigham, obviously, bullpen role. He could be a nice little, inning clearer guy, going into like the middle of 6 or something. So many good questions in regard to prospects and pitching depth. Yeah, and that's what makes this time of year exciting is you have all these questions in regards to, is this guy going to make the team? Is this guy not going to make the team? Who is the most approved? So that's what I love about this time of season. There's really no right or wrongs. Sorry. Did you see that stat that the Mets? Michael says, did you see that stat that the Mets have 3 guys from last year, Raley, Diaz, and Ottavino? Forgot about Brooks Raley. That were top 10 in barrel percentage, lowest in barrel balls hit against. That's pretty impressive. Riley was 3rd in the MLB. Yeah, Brooks Riley, I have no idea if I'm saying his name right. I'll figure it out soon, I guess. He's a guy that I think is going to have an interesting season. I talk about bullpen arms not being consistent, and Riley is definitely one that maybe can fit into that mix, obviously. He's kind of bounced around. Like I said, he's played with the Cubs, the Reds, the Astros, and then the Rays. He's a Tampa Bay arm, so that's always good to see. But last year, 53 2/3 innings pitched with Tampa. That's the most he's ever had in his career. It's the best year by far. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Also, Raley could also be a nice 7th inning guy. So, I mean, like I said, the Mets have plenty of options of how they can go with it. I mean, you can go with the 7th inning of, Robertson or Raley, and then the 8th inning of Ottavino and Robertson, and then, the 9th inning you have Diaz. So, I mean, that just really goes to show that you have a lot against. But, yeah, Raley definitely is a guy who, from what I've heard and what I've, seen and read, he's a guy who gives up a lot of light contact. He's a light contact merchant, like you said. Top 10 and, giving up barrels the least. So he's a light contact merchant. He doesn't throw very hard, so maybe that could be necessarily why. Like I said, he doesn't have much velocity on his fastball. Yet, I mean, he doesn't throw his fastball a whole lot, but still, he doesn't, he's not throwing 100 miles per hour. So, yeah, definitely a light contact guy. By relievers, yeah. Lane says, how do you feel about the Yankees rotation going into spring training? Yeah, I mean, I think the Yankees rotation is going to be interesting. Like I said, I mean, you don't have Frankie Montas. And right now, I think that's an unfortunate blow for the Yankee fans and the Yankees, going into the season. Obviously, last year, Montas really struggled in New York acclimating. He got traded from the A's to the Yankees, really struggled. And this year, a lot of people were hoping that he would settle into New York fine. But right now, you got Garrett Cole. You have Carlos Rodon, so that nice lefty. We'll see how he does first year. You have Nestor Cortez, a guy that I'm kind of curious to see how he does with, obviously, MLB, being more kind of frugal and anal when it comes to, the wind-up. Guys like Luis Garcia and Nestor Cortez are going to have a hard issue with that, or else it's going to be called a balk. So we'll see how Cortez does. I don't know if he'll be like last year, but I definitely think he's still a good ball player. Maybe sub-3 ERA type guy. Obviously, fourth, you probably got Severino, but also injury concern too, you got to realize. And then, fifth, do you go with Domingo Germán? Germán is, really a guy who is going to do good for 5 starts and then get his shit rocked for the next 5. So kind of got to take a grain of salt with him. And then you got Clark Schmidt. And are the Yankees ready to kind of release Clark Schmidt into this full-time role? I think it'd be a good opportunity. I think this could be a blessing in disguise for Yankee fans. Obviously, Schmidt didn't have the best of year last year. He started off in the rotation. They moved him to the bullpen. He hasn't really had a full time to really get into his groove. Saw him in 2020. He didn't really get a good amount of time in the last 2 years, and this could be his time. It really could. And, I'm surprised the Yankees didn't make a move. And they were talking about a guy like Carlos Carrasco trading for that 5th starter. But, yeah, right now it doesn't really seem like, the Yankees are going to go out for a 5th starter. It seems like they're going to go with the internal of Germán and Schmidt. Grant, what's going on? He says, are you not seeing my comments? I am not seeing your comments. Yeah, I'm not seeing your comment. That's weird. I apologize. Comment what you were commenting before, because I did not see it. I'm not seeing it on my phone either. Yeah, try commenting it again. I'm sorry. I don't know why it didn't come up. I see this, though. But, yeah, please comment it again. I wasn't sure what it was. Lane says, can the Mets sign Zach Britton, Brian Reynolds, and Trevor Bauer and Andrew Chafin? Trevor Bauer, no. Andrew Chafin signed with the Diamondbacks. You just have Zach Britton and Brian Reynolds you'd have to trade for. I don't really think the Mets would go after Reynolds, considering you just locked up Nimmo and you got Marte for the next 3 years. And I think this is Canna's final year. But, yeah, I don't really see the Mets going after Brian Reynolds, trading for him. Maybe Zach Britton, nice little bullpen role, little bullpen depth. And, considering Showalter definitely knows Zach Britton well. And obviously, the last time Zach Britton, played for Buck Showalter was one of his career best years. So we'll see how things go. It's going to be exciting. Chafin signed with the Diamondbacks. Yeah, Andrew Chafin signed to the Diamondbacks. And that's just crazy. The fact is that, where were the Mets with this? They signed him to like a 1-year deal worth like $5 million. Where were they with this? So, yeah, it's kind of frustrating when it comes to little stuff like that, but it's how it goes, I guess. You had Michael Fulmer too. Michael Fulmer and Chafin signed 1-year deals. So cheap. It's like Billy Epler, could have done this. 1 year, $6 million. Are you kidding? It's cake. But, it's how it goes, I guess. Kobe says, any little improvement from catchers, DH, third base will score another run and a half. Yeah, essentially pretty much. You're kind of just hoping. I think the third base position, you'll get more production. I think same for the DH, but catcher position, I'm really not expecting much. I'm not really expecting Nito and Omar Narvaez to, give me, much production. Haley says, think Escobar is going to have a good season, or else there's going to be a lot of issues. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And you saw it last year where, when the Mets offense kind of went to quiet down is when Escobar got hot. And, I said it so many times last year with Escobar in September. And, when he was hot is if Escobar is going to have a great August and September and help the Mets get to the playoff push and carry the team when everyone else is at a low, no one's going to care about what he did in the beginning. And like I said, Escobar, switch hitter, he offers a lot. Michael says, and I was just about to say, the shift being banned, I think is going to help him out a lot. But, what we saw with Escobar is changed his stance a couple times throughout the season. And if you go back and watch, Escobar's at bats in April, in June, in September, changed his stance multiple times. And, SNY, they did a little segment on it. I thought it was interesting. And, he had a couple issues off the field, whatever. But I definitely think Escobar is going to have a little bit better of a season. And if he's not, like I said, if Escobar is coming into July or June, he's batting like 210 home runs, you're going to be making the talk of, putting him in the DH or benching him and, giving Beatty and Guillorme more starts. And, I agree with you. The Mets don't want to give up the draft picks. Oh, shoot, you're right. Yeah, they were on qualifying offers. Yeah, I did forget about that. I don't think Fulmer had I don't think the Tigers gave Fulmer a qualifying offer. I know they gave Chafin, and he declined it. And then, ironically, it was the same amount of money that he would have made in Detroit. So it just goes to show that he just didn't like Detroit. But, yeah, I forgot that Chafin was qualifying, that they gave him a qualifying offer. What happened to Mackenzie Gore playing for the Mets? I think they released him on waivers, and I think he may have got picked. Not Mackenzie Gore, freaking Terrence Gore. My apologies. I was thinking of the Padres prospect, or now the new national pitcher, whatever. Terrence Gore. Where is he now? He's on a minor league deal with the Mets, I think. Yeah, I believe he's on a minor league deal with the Mets. Yeah, really not much to go out with him. Just speed, base runner. So, yeah, I guess if anyone else has any more comments, questions, concerns, do not hesitate. Feel free to drop it in the comments section below. Otherwise, like I said, we'll probably get ready to call this a stream with, in the next couple minutes or so. Like I said, I really do appreciate everyone for tuning into today's stream. As always been great stream. Happy to come on here. Like I said, I do apologize for not really streaming a whole lot in the off season. I just don't like, it's just, it's hard. In the regular season, I have my series previews and summaries. I have more of a, more organized, more of a routine. But yeah, this is also fun, get to comment, have a great conversation in the chat with everyone. So, yeah. We'll get into the last two comments here. Michael says, I don't think the Mets want Chafin because he doesn't have options or he requires pick compensation. And I think the price tag was an issue. Well, let's see. Andrew Chafin. So it wasn't the qualifying offer. Back on a 1-year deal. What was it? 6.5 million? 7.5. 6.5, 7.5 with incentives. Yeah, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, I could really care less. The Mets have their lefty pitchers now, so just would have been extra nice, I guess. We'll go Mets. Do the Mets wear black uniforms on the road? Unfortunately, they do not this year. So, yeah, probably going to call it a stream here. I really do appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's stream. As always, it's been phenomenal time coming on here, talking New York Mets baseball with everyone. Always fun. I do appreciate, like I said, everyone for chiming in. Obviously, we had a great stream, a ton of great comments, questions, concerns in regards to the Mets spring training, in regards to Mets prospect news, Mets history, Mets hypotheticals, all of that great stuff down the line. We got plenty to talk about. It's going to be a busy next week. Next week at this time, be Saturday. I will be in Port St. Lucie. I will be down there with a lot of other Met fans. So if you're going to be down there, if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, I'll put my Twitter on. I'll plug in my Twitter during the before I get off for the outro. My Twitter will be on there. And yeah, so I will see you guys. Like I said, I appreciate everyone for tuning in today's stream. Please, everyone, give this stream a like, comment, subscribe, turn on those post notifications. Tell your friends about this channel. Like I said, why not? It's free. Subscribing, it's free. It's probably one of the few things in life that is free. So just hit that subscribe button. And yeah, like I said, till next time, baseball fans, appreciate everyone for tuning in. LFGM, Mets country, let's ride. Till next time, baseball fans, see ya.